What resonated for you, and did anything in particular stick out given it's International Women's Day today?
So first of all, you are a wonderful audience, and we've never done one of these talkbacks where this many people sit on the stage. I love it. I love it. Bring your pillow. Well, you know what it is? It's like I haven't seen the show in 2 weeks or so, and I just ran backstage to see Eve, and you know that interaction that we just had symbolizes what it's like to work with her and how this play resonates. Because she grabbed me and she hugged me and she said, "Do you know what happened in Spain today?" So I didn't, Where was I today? On the telephone. I was not looking or watching. And I said, "What happened in Spain?" And she said, 5.2 million people rose in Spain today. And they said, "We stop, we won't work." They shut down subways, they took to the streets. And she said they started in the morning with their aprons. They were all wearing aprons. And by the end of the day, the aprons had become their capes, which was such a great image. And she said, it's coming, that was a flash flood. The tsunami's coming, And then she said, "I have to go home and rest." I said, "I know you do." Because she said this is quite a thing for her to do every day. But, so yeah, I was thinking about it today and just to be here tonight. And what resonated? It just resonated, to come out of our busy lives and come in the dark downstairs in this, we're in a basement of a theater in Midtown, and yet somehow we can be here and sit side by side and listen and take in someone else's story and relate to it and be in connection to it. And then I was wondering how the plants were doing. These are all live plants. And when we got here, Eve and I were going crazy about how important it was that the plants survived and lived and were taken well cared for. Were taken well cared for, and they're thriving. And we have a horticulturist who comes once a week, and we do get the reports on what's growing and what's new. And I was just marveling at how thriving this garden is down here in the basement in Midtown. So those are the things that are resonating today.
Speaking of what resonated, I want to go back to where you began with this story in Eve's memoir. For anyone who doesn't know, Eve has a memoir by the same name as the play that tells her story in greater length. And I'm curious about when you read the memoir for the first time, what were the parts of it that jumped out to you and said, I have to be on stage and I need to be realized theatrically?
Well, I had been a super fan of Eve's from a distance and seen her work and, read things she had written in books and articles. And then we had met occasionally, but we had one particular meeting when I was directing Pippin, and she came to see it, and she was just such an amazing colleague. She just looked at me. We went out for food after the show one night in some divey restaurant in Times Square, and she just said, "Good for you! You directed that big old musical. Go girl!" And it was just sometimes you need your colleagues to say that to you. And I said, I think you need an artistic home. Do you have one? She said, I don't. I said, well, why don't you come up to A.R.T, which is the American Repertory Theater at Harvard, where I'm the artistic director. And she came, and we met, and we started talking about what she wanted to do in the theater, and she had a play and another idea, and she had written the memoir, and she gave it to me, and I read it, and I found it to be some of her most personal writing, because she talks so much about her own body, and this departure point of a woman who's really dedicated her life to other women, traveled the world, put herself, right inside other women's trauma, and that paradox that she hadn't looked at her own body. And that really struck me, because I think we can all relate to that, that monologue she has in the beginning where she says, it's all a monologue, that one moment where she says, it doesn't feel like a monologue, right? She has all these sister and her son and her mother there, but where she says, where did I go? Why didn't I look at my body? I knew there were signs, but why didn't I look? So that really caught me. My mother had cancer and had colon cancer, actually. Sadly, passed away, did not survive. So I also related to it because I came to it, I don't know, maybe it was now like 15 years since my mother's passing. But I remembered it. I remembered so much about it. The chemotherapy, the radiation, the bags. I remember that doctor that wouldn't look us in the eye, and I remember having intuitions about what was going on and pain and not feeling like there was a person that we could connect to. So there were so many things about care and healing and when you have someone close to you who has cancer, you drop into that world of how many people deal with this disease, and you just feel like you've joined this community of people who deal with it, suffer from it, struggle with it, survive it. I think I just felt it was a story that needed to be told, and the metaphor about the planet. About her body connecting to the planet, and just that concept of, in the body of the world, and this connection she was having between all these things that were happening to her. I mean, it's kind of crazy that infection happened the day of the BP oil spill. Like, you almost have to laugh that with Eve Ensler that happens, and she was having this whole connection of the Gulf oil spill and that infection spreading in her body. So, I asked her, I said, can we commission this and adapt it for the stage?
And then after that, for anyone who doesn't know, there was a production at the American Repertory Theater in the spring of 2016, but prior to this production. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the journey from that production to this production in terms of what's changed in the world and how has that affected the way you've approached the piece as a creator, but also in terms of your reaction to it as an audience member.
Yeah, at its essence, it's the same because she's going back to that moment in her life in 2010. So that retelling is the same. But the concept of the piece was always, we're in real time, in real space together. And that was sort of my experience going to her loft, which, by the way, looks exactly like the set. It's got a rug like this and a red velvet couch like that, and that chair is exactly her chair, and the altar is a replica of her altar, and the loft is in the memoir. So I remember when I first worked in her loft, I was like, this is it. Oh my God. And there was Toast. Toast was there down the hall, keeping track of things for Eve. And so the concept was always, it's Eve. She's in the room. How can I make the audience feel like they're in the room? How can we feel present today? And then go back through a story together. So, of course, when we picked it up to bring here again, we started again, and we said, how does it feel to be in the room today? So we definitely made edits. We made changes. She had her list. She was so excited to do the what not to think about on day 4 of chemo. And it was like a big list of things that had to do with today. And we were in a run-through in the rehearsal hall. And I was like, wait a minute. But that was when you had chemo back in 2010. So it doesn't make sense that you're listing all those things now. And we're like, she was like, oh no, we have to find a way. So then we found that solution where halfway through she goes, and if you're in chemo now. And then she gets to all the things she wanted to say about right now. Because we wanted to put it in, but when we saw it in run through, I was like, wait, that takes you out. Because you're back with her back in 2010. And there were certain things, like when she lists the stuff about the environment at the time, I think she used to say all the early warning signs are there, right? And we're like, well, we can't have that line anymore. It's flash floods and murderous mudslides, and it's way beyond early warning signs at this point. So there were just things we edited and changed for this production, for this moment.
I want to ask also, you so often fill your rehearsal rooms and your theaters with so many women, and because it's International Women's Day, I'm wondering if you could talk about the process of creating this with so many female designers and so many female members of the team, and why that was important to you on this production and what it influenced.
Well, I really do believe, I honestly, I don't consciously say I must only have women. But I just look to the field. I look to the set designers. I look to this amazing young woman, by the way, who was the associate director, who's a rising star, young female director in the field. And you just see they're there. They're all over. So to me, it's about pulling the talent of women that whose work should be seen. This was a very special collaboration with my set designer, and she did the costumes as well. That's Myung-Hee Cho. And she actually, this is what this means, actually, collaboration and process. She had designed the big V-Day celebration at Madison Square Garden that Eve did back in the 90s. I think it was the 90s, or early 2000s. And I had been doing work with Myung-Hee separate. And Myung-Hee Cho kept saying, you and Eve have to meet. For like 10 years, she was like, you two have to meet. And I kept saying, I know, it would be such an honor, but your lives go different paths. So it was thanks to Myung-Hee Cho that we finally connected. So that was a no-brainer. The first person I picked up the phone was like, okay, Eve and I met, she gave me her memoir, you have to come design this show. And what did we do? We went to her loft. I mean, it was like that. We just kept bringing people to her loft, and we sat around her table. And I'll never forget the day where I just said, I think this is the set. Just start taking pictures. She took her phone out, and she went around, started taking pictures of her kitchen, and the couch and the pillows, and then that started to evolve. And then we together created this idea of the garden because I just felt, I normally don't do one-person shows. It's not what I gravitate towards. I like shows with lots of people and ensembles and companies. But the thing about Eve, which you know from being in the room, when you go back to this question in the room, it's like the world is in the room when you're with Eve. Every rehearsal, you're talking. Everybody, the lines of when you're rehearsing and when you're just talking blur completely. So you're having a conversation about what happened in the news today, about politics, about a book. She's giving me books all the time, and then next thing you know, we're like, should we do that again? Yeah, let's do that again. And she'll rehearse that section, and it just ebbed and flowed like that. And she had often talked to me about the other Garden of Eden, the Garden of Eve, right, in our ancient mythology. So that had stuck in my brain, and I just thought, I think this show needs like a moment at the end where we're not in that loft. Like, we can be in that loft the whole show, and the whole space can keep transforming, but at some moment, we have to have the earth with us, and we have to see that, right through the wall is nature. So we went through a process up at Harvard. He worked with the Graduate School of Design, and they did a charrette on different kinds of gardens. There were all these architects who helped us, landscape designers. And then we finally evolved to this idea, which we had at A.R.T., which was much bigger, like higher, because we have a big, high theater. This is very low. But I did think, we could go wide. I was like, how far off can these wings go? Just push them as far away as we can get. And the other thing I want to say about the garden, because I think it was so important, what it did to the crew at A.R.T. I have a wonderful crew, but it's always, like, sweep the stage, when can we go home? Everybody's working hard. But I saw a change in the crew at the A.R.T. It was like my head chief of production became like the head gardener. And it was like everybody cared about the plants because you're just dealing with living, breathing, real things. And it was an amazing transformation, for us as a company. And then at the end of the run, we gave the plants away to hospitals and locations all over Cambridge, and we kept one in our lobby, and it still grows through those harsh Boston winters. It's one of the big palm ferns is in our lobby, and then I saw that happen here too at Manhattan Theater Club, coming here and just seeing that change in the crew, and we'd come in, even I, during tech. I mean, there was a gecko that arrived one day, and there's like a gecko service in New York for like lost geckos. So we had it in a shoebox, and the production manager was like, "Go figure." In New York City, there's a service we'll like take care of the gecko and put it in a natural environment. There are moths. I remember one early preview, a panic technician came and said, "If you see blobs in the projection designs, Diane, it's the moth. It's there, we can't get it out right now, so, and I was like, that's fine, it's like the moth, it's meant to be. And then the plants, they're new ferns. There's new life that's grown here now over the course of the last 6 weeks, so it's that did something, that design, being a living, breathing, organic design.
Thank you. I want to open it up for your questions. Please speak loudly, and then I will just repeat your question on the mic so that everybody can hear it. Yes?
I love the way you talk about like space and encouraging and bringing this life and the growth from going from A.R.T. to here. Has Eve talked about performing it anywhere else, like particularly the City of Joy? I know for V-Day, her big thing, instead of adding monologue, it was reclaiming a space and going out and kind of going outside of the theater. And you did a great job bringing the outside here, but had she thought about maybe performing it there anywhere else?
The question was about potentially performing the play elsewhere, theoretically in City of Joy.
Yeah, I think she'd love to do it elsewhere. She's so exhausted by this. I think she just did not anticipate how draining doing it for this many weeks, 7 shows a week would be. Although it's been this incredible experience because of the community that's come from the show and the kind of energy she's gotten from it. So she goes to City of Joy at least once a year. It's been very difficult to get to the Congo now because it's very dangerous right now. It's hard to get visas to get into the country. Mama C, who you heard about, Mama C, who's the director, was here in New York for 3 days and did these talkbacks around Valentine's Day. She was here for the big V-Day celebration. So the contact with the women of City of Joy continues. And I'll never forget when we were in Tech in Cambridge and videos came in from the women. I mean, that's what technology gave you. So the women were sending us videos that we were looking at the tech desk, and they're like, good luck with the show. And they were all there in that beautiful courtyard and singing for us. So I think they're very connected to the production. So we'll see. We'll see. I think there'll be some form in which this can continue. I get interested in how this can reach people who can't get to the theater. Kind of along your line of question. When we were in Cambridge, a lot of doctors came to us and said, "How can we get this to people like who are in hospitals or people who aren't able to get into a theater, who could commune with it?" So we're working on some of those solutions.
How do you feel that the memoir presentation is especially pertinent right now in our culture?
Yeah, wow. Well, I think it's pertinent. It's kind of what I said before. And Eve says this a lot too, that we are at a moment where we can feel overwhelmed and numb and depressed and angry. And all those things are real, but I think there's something about where Eve is living now, even though she takes us in this journey through a lot of anger, a lot of fear, a lot of questioning, that in the end, she's so interested in how do we have joy? How do we connect? That moment, she really loves to do that moment. Like a lot of actors, like they don't like that, break the fourth wall. They don't want to see people, but like she loves that moment where she asks you to dance. It's just very, whether you want to dance or not. I always tell her, don't force people to dance. Just tell them they can sit and move in their chairs. We don't want to make anybody feel bad if they don't want to dance. But she's, that's what Billion Rising now is about, dancing. It's about getting in your body and dancing. And this belief, if you can get in your body and you can connect, and that cannot be taken away. She's always saying they cannot take that away. So, I think I connect to that part of the story, is how can we connect and feel encouraged and like hang on to the joy and hang on to this, resilience, which you feel when you're with her. So for me, that's the vibration of the play that I think we need So in thinking about why are we making theater now, what can it do, that's something very important, I think, for this particular version of the production right now.
Do one more.
I noticed several little statues around in the garden, and particularly this one here.
Yes.
It's very strong. I feel a very strong vibe from this image. And I'm sure that spirituality has a big part in her healing.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious about what this particular statue.
Yeah.
deity it
Yeah, so that's Tara, the mother of Buddha, and that's the same goddess that was on the little what's it called? Little table that was over there. So that's Tara. And in the memoir, she talks about praying to various goddesses when she has to go into chemotherapy, and she's terrified. So she prays to the goddess of Tara, who is the goddess of healing. And then she also prays to Kali, who's like the warrior goddess. Yeah. So that was the goddess that we saw in the altar. So that's Tara. She's like a presiding goddess. But as you walked around, Isis is there. There's a representation of Isis. Exactly. And those are, a lot of those come from inspiration from Eve, and she has altars all over her house. So we have these altars all over, for people and people have added to them. And I don't know if the Cindy buttons are around. Yeah. Did anybody see a Cindy button? Eve was like, I'm going to start a movement for the Cindys. So she made these buttons that just say Cindy, and she leaves them there, like thinking, some people may take them and start the Cindy movement. So there's some Cindy buttons on the set too that you're free to take. So yeah, definitely this reverence to kind of mother goddesses.
You can smell the earth as you walk through.
I know. You can really smell the earth. It's true. I know. The air.
Wonderful. I want to thank you so much for doing this, and thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you for coming.
If you'd like to see more of these talks, if you look at the web link that's on the pamphlet in your programs, there are recordings of them on our website, and so you can.
The doctors from the Mayo Clinic came and had an amazing conversation, so you can hear those conversations on the website. We're here till March 25th. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.